Is there anybody else in the waiting room now, Felice?
There's not. Everybody's joined.
Okay. I see that we have 5 people on the call for this, so that definitely constitutes a quorum, so we can go ahead and call this meeting to order. So thanks everyone for attending today's Public Transit Advisory Committee meeting. As you can see, Adam Weigel is not with us today. He apparently is still sick with COVID, which is interesting that we're going to be discussing in-person meetings on that exact day. But for now, Felice, could you go through the rules of engagement for our Zoom calls and then do a roll call of committee members, please?
So good evening, everyone. My name is Amy Lynch, Transit Planner 1, Lawrence Transit. With me here is Transit Planner 2. She will work alongside Mike Wazakowski to facilitate the meeting proceedings. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel and public access. During the meeting, when you are not participating, please mute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon found in the lower left-hand side of the Zoom menu. In some cases, we may mute or unmute people as needed to minimize distractions during the meeting. Please remember to state your name and title for the benefit of those listening remotely. If you are participating by phone, you can click *6 to unmute your phone. And now I will do roll call. Lance Fay.
Here.
Max Schieber.
Here.
Mike Wazakowski.
Here.
Alan Ackland.
Here.
Gregory Critchlow. Bill Wilson.
Yes, here.
August Rudisell.
Here.
And Freddie Gipp.
That leaves us with 6. I do see Gregory Critchlow signing on right now, though, so that would bring us up to 7. And that definitely constitutes a quorum. So thank you for going through roll call with that. At this time, first item on our agenda is public comment. I do see the author of a letter to us, or an email to us in attendance. Patricia, would you like to say anything at this time?
Oh, could you hear me?
Yes, we
Can you hear
can.
me? Oh, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not good at Zoom. I'm in a quandary. I tried to reach somebody this afternoon to find out, because I looked on a certain site, the project page, and it showed that the number 4 bus was still running on 9th Street by that plan for January 23rd. And if January 2023, if that's true, then a lot of what I said, I don't know. Is that true? Felice would know.
Hi, this is Felice Laverne, Transit Planner 2. We can address that on item number 4. I think we're going to go through the route redesign presentation with the consultant.
That's correct. We are planning on this as a topic for today, Patricia. So if you have the time and are available to, I would encourage you to stay online, and we will copiously discuss the route redesign and can in particular take a look at the routes that you mentioned.
Thank you. I'm all yours. I'm gonna mute myself now. Thank you.
Of course. I do see at least one other name that I don't recognize other than Boris. Is there anyone else on the call here who would like to provide public comment? Felice, is anyone in the room with us?
Felice Laverne, Transit Planner 2, there's no one in the room.
Okay, then I think we've addressed public comment sufficiently. The next item on the agenda is approving the minutes from our March meeting. So a reminder, as always, I will ask you to look over the minutes from last month's meeting, and I will give you 3 opportunities to propose amendments to the minutes based on your recollection of what happened, what we discussed, and make it more correct. So everyone, please take a little bit of time if you haven't already. And I'll make my first call here. Are there any amendments to offer to the minutes from our March meeting? Second call. Does anyone have any amendments to offer to the minutes from our March meeting? Last call. Any amendments to offer to the minutes from March's meeting? Hearing none, then the minutes are deemed approved by unanimous consent. So first item on our agenda then is preparing for in-person meetings. Felice, Andy, I believe you have a presentation for us of some kind or some sort of discussion to lead.
Felice Laverne, Transit Planner 2. I just have an opener for you all. We are prepared to return to in-person meetings. Virtual will always be an option. It's up to you all to decide what our new normal looks like for this committee. Do you want to set expectations to be in person or virtual only, or virtual as the exception? We can work with whatever that you would like to do, but we want it to be the same moving forward each month. So that's a little bit about our opener. So it's really up to you. We will work with whatever you would like to do, and we hope that it is consistent.
Right. I'll just say I'm not a fan of necessarily saying we need to be consistent going forward, because who knows if we're going to get another Omicron spike with 300 cases per 10,000 residents here. And, you know, if that happens, I don't want to be in person at that time. But I think it's good to try and set a consistent standard of, assuming that something like that doesn't happen, what do we want to do?
Lance Fay, Vice Chair PTAC, I would like to suggest that we postpone for 1 month any really further formal discussion of deciding this, just to see what happens and go from there.
Well, we have a motion on the floor. If anyone wants to discuss that or provide a second to that, we can go ahead and entertain that this time. Any PTAC members wish to chime in other than Lance? I see a couple who had raised hands. I think Alan was trying to speak, and I saw Gregory raising his hand. So let's go Alan first.
Yeah, this is Al Ackland, PTAC member. Yeah, that's fine with me to defer for another month. And I'm not sure if this would apply to only PTAC meetings or if this is a citywide, would cover all citywide meetings. So that's another question to have answered.
Yeah, I think we can only decide for ourselves, right, Felice, like our committee? Okay. Gregory, you had your hand up.
I would suggest a hybrid situation to be able to allow more people to participate if they can't make it in person, whether it be public comment or traveling. So that would be my only suggestion as we move forward.
Okay. Anybody else have any other PTAC members have anything to add on that?
This is Al Ackland, the PTAC member. Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that our policy would be applied citywide. It was just a question of whether or not there'd be a consistent policy within all city meetings. You could see where that goes with the number of committees, all different.
Yeah, I think that the city commission rule right now is that their members are going to be meeting in person. There will still be an online option, but they're aiming for everything intended to be in person other than people who want to dial in remotely. That would be obviously an option, but honestly, at this time, it sounds like not too many people have a voice in the matter, so I'm inclined to accept Lance's suggestion and table this until next month, unless any objections from PTAC members.
I have some more information. I have some more information for you if you'd like it.
Yes, please.
Jessica Mortinger, Transportation Planning Manager. So across the organization, like you mentioned, the City Commission is moving to hybrid meetings. The expectation that the city would like us to set is to just be consistent in the sense, not if COVID changes things, because I think we want to be flexible in that regard, but to be consistent with the public and the expectation about if you do transition to hybrid, how many of the members of the voting members of the body are expected to be in person versus online, because that impacts how people choose to attend. And that just needs to be made clear on the agenda. You'll notice some of the changing agenda text across the organization about if it's a hybrid meeting and whether or not the elected body or the voice making the vote is going to be in person or hybrid or a mix. And so that's the consistency, I think, in what the conversation hopefully was, is whether or not you have start that this month or next month or whenever, but as we think about what normal may look like in the future, the expectation is that hybrid could be an option because it does allow more people to attend, but that as the risk of COVID is lessened, if that continues to be the case, then inviting people back in person also makes some people feel more comfortable than the use of technology. And so it's just about being consistently clear to the public about what they can expect, whether they're logging on online or coming in person.
Thank you, Jessica. PTAC members, is there any objection to tabling this until next month when we get Adam back, hopefully? Okay, I'm inclined to accept that then. Next item on our agenda is a public participation plan update. And this one, I do see an attachment that we have to present. Jessica, you're up, I'm guessing?
Yep. I'm going to take this one tonight. Jessica Mortinger, Transportation Planning Manager with the Lawrence Douglas County Metropolitan Planning Organization. And I'm presenting this tonight for your consideration of the public participation plan update. We're going to just talk a little bit about, we've attached to the agenda the current plan, which if you had a chance to open it, you could see is 4 pages. And so as you kind of look through that, or if you had the opportunity to look through the new plan, we'll talk a little bit about how the MPO and Lawrence Transit Coordination has led us to develop a combined plan, and what we believe is the benefit of the extensive kind of update of that combined plan. And so on the next slide, you'll see we believe that the current plan is really a kind of a bare minimum to meet FTA's requirements, that we have a locally developed plan and that there's documentation of the implementation of that plan. But the current plan doesn't really provide clear expectations to the public about what techniques may be used across the board. And it was last adopted in 2011, and some things have changed since then. Not only just the community's expectation about engagement, not only COVID, but just some of the tools that we can use and how we have changed the tone of engagement in an attempt to be more inclusive to the vulnerable voices in our community and make sure people are represented. So in the next slide, you'll see that you may be familiar with some of the MPO and Lawrence Transit Coordination. And when we've coordinated through those processes, the MPO has always had a more extensive public participation plan that details a lot of the different strategies that are used for public engagement to set clearer expectations when different elements will be used. And so in our effort to update our plan, we coordinated with Lawrence Transit staff to work together to include the content we think for transit planning as well as just transportation planning. And I think from the public's perspective, that keeps expectations and strategies really consistent across the board and sends consistent messages about how we're going to do engagement in this community around transit and transportation planning. So we believe there's a lot of public benefit to that consistency through the expectations and delivery of that engagement. If you go to the next slide, The new plan also aligns the framework we have about public participation to the International Association of Public Participation. That's IAP2. And there has been renewed efforts from the city to certify staff in IAP2 certification around engagement. And we believe that that allows us to do a process that includes a lot more reflection on stakeholders who need to be engaged, vulnerable voices, documentation through the process of public engagement in a transparent way, and a process for back-end evaluation of how we're doing. We recognize that public engagement is continually evolving, and we need to evolve with it, whether that be our strategies or techniques, or even just the work we're doing as we learn what the public, how they want to work with us and what they expect in terms of being engaged in these processes. So we believe the new plan sets the framework for that engagement and lays out more clearly different processes that the MPO, as for transportation planning or for transit, are going to engage within the public across public engagement. And so we're looking for your consideration and approval today of the public participation plan. And Felice or I would be happy to answer any questions you may have about what you saw on your attached on your agenda.
Thank you, Jessica. I'll open the floor to my fellow PTAC members at this time. Does anyone have any comments, questions, or concerns for Jessica about the plan that was published with our agenda? Crickets, nice. Any members of the public out there want to comment? Still none in the audience. I'm guessing, Patricia, you don't need to comment, but if you want to, you have an opportunity.
Lance Fay, Vice Chair PTAC. Is this something, an action item tonight, or is it just a presentation?
Ms. Laverne, Transit Planner 2, it is an action item.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So having said that, I think it's great that there is actually a public participation platform. And if there are no other comments, then I would so move to accept it as such.
We have a motion to accept the plan. Do any PTAC members want to provide a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Max. Felice, Andy, go ahead and go through a roll call and tally up the votes, please.
All right, Lance Fay,
Okay.
Max Schieber,
Hey.
Mike Wazakowski,
Yay.
Alan Ackland,
Aye.
Gregory Critchlow,
Yes.
Bill Wilson,
Yes.
August Rudisell,
Aye.
Freddie Gitt.
Seems unanimous. Ayes have it. Thank you very much for that presentation, Jessica. I hope that the new plan provides us good benefits going forward, interacting with the public. The last major item under regular agenda items is a route redesign, final proposed route changes that our Foursquare ITP is going to present. So I believe there's a set of slides that we need to look at, or a Google Earth presentation, Boris.
Yeah, I'll be sharing my screen, so let me try to do that. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Yeah, okay, great. So yeah, just to begin, before we begin, we are going to go through route by route. So it may take a while, but this is, we're kind of the 1 year mark of the study, the route redesign study. And back in September or October of last year, we presented 2 scenarios of ways to redesign the service. That may be what Patricia, I believe her name was referring to earlier, that she had seen some ideas and now she's seeing some different ideas, or she, slightly altered. So tonight what we'll be presenting is the final recommendations. So there's potentially still some opportunities to tweak service based on responses to meetings like this, and there's an online survey going on as well. But for the most part, this is the recommendations based on all of the public outreach that we've done up to now, and based, in addition to that, on kind of 3 driving factors. The first is just simply a desire to create a more effective and efficient transit system. So responding to what we saw in terms of the analysis of the routes, each individual route. The second is preparing the system for the coming online of the Bob Billings hub, the new transit hub that's coming online. And then the third piece, which is sort of the most recent, is making sure that the routes, especially the KU routes, are designed in a way that there's maximum flexibility in how the service looks going forward, whether it's an adjustment in frequency, up or down, because there's sort of an open debate or some open questions now about how much funding will be available from KU for the KU routes. And so the third piece of that is also a key consideration to ensure that the routes are designed in a way that they can be altered going forward if there's more resources or fewer resources from KU. And Margareta, I see you popped up there, so hopefully I stated that more or less accurately on the KU side. All right, great. So we'll go through route by route, one by one. So what's on the screen now is a map of the Lawrence region, and it's color-coded based on density. And that's just kind of for informational purposes. The more red, the more orange to red means there's more activity. The more kind of yellow and green means there's less activity. That means both employment and residential activity. I just have that up here because it's a lot easier to have that as a background as we go through the routes than the regular Google Earth map. So that's the purpose of that. But we'll go through route by route. So starting with Route 1. And what I'm showing here is the proposed alignment for Route 1. When needed, I can also put up the current alignment for the routes for comparative purposes, and sort of show them one next to the other. But Route 1 is, the main change on Route 1 is that service is shifted from Haskell Avenue to Massachusetts Street. And that's done in order to provide a direct connection to the Dillon's grocery store on Massachusetts. Every route, we are trying to, within each route, we're trying to create a good mix of origins and destinations to allow every route to be a strong standalone route. So what that means is we want to link multifamily housing, so apartment complexes, mobile home parks, condominiums, that kind of thing, to the types of places where people need to go for their daily errands and so on. So we want to make sure that there's grocery stores on a route that has a heavy concentration of residential. And so by shifting this route from Haskell to Massachusetts, it does create that direct access to the Dillons for people that live along the Harper Street corridor, along Massachusetts itself, and so on. So that's the main change. The other change is that the end of the route is shifted from the Douglas County Jail to the the shelter, the Lawrence Shelter, community shelter, to create a bit better access to the shelter. And then this route is also proposed for interlining with Route 5. So what interlining means, for those of you who haven't heard the term before, is that a single bus or a series of buses operate along more than one route. So once a bus finishes with Route 1 at the Lawrence Shelter, that bus does not return along the same route. It actually transitions to a different route. So in this case, it transitions from Route 1 to Route 5. And so if a person stays on the bus at the Lawrence Shelter, they will then go to the East Hills Business Park before heading out on 23rd Street to points west. And that's not to say that Route 1 will not have bidirectional service, because it will. Buses will be traveling in both directions along the same alignment, but buses will come on Route 1 and then go out on Route 5, but then buses coming in on Route 5 will go out on Route 1. So in effect, both routes have bidirectional service. So feel free to, if anyone has a question at any point, feel free to speak up. I want to make sure I can see chat on here as well. Let me see, how do I see that? Okay, yeah, I'll try to monitor the chat. So if there's anything that comes up there, I'll try to address
Boris,
that as well.
this is August Budiso, PTAC member. It may be quicker to say you'll specify, but this is a half-hour interval route right now. Is it stay a half hour?
So one important change that we're proposing going forward is to have routes that change frequency during certain times of the day. So Route 1 and Route 5 both are proposed for 30-minute peak frequency and 60-minute off-peak frequency. So during approximately 2.5 hours in the morning, approximately 3 hours in the afternoon, during peak periods, the routes would operate every 30 minutes, and then they would operate hourly during the midday. Okay, and that's from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. for both routes. All right, so that's Route 1, and I'll come back to Route 5 later, but the next route we'll look at is Route 3. So this is the proposed Route 3. So this route would be a bi-directional route with service along Michigan Street. So it would connect downtown to the LMH campus along Michigan, and it would operate north and southbound along Michigan, which is different than the current Route 3, which provides only southbound service along Michigan with northbound buses traveling up Iowa Street. So this allows for all of the multifamily housing, and there's a lot of it. We can actually, I can show this points of interest layer, but there's a lot of multifamily housing along Michigan. It provides a much more kind of user-friendly service for those folks trying to get to downtown and then connecting to other destinations perhaps, because they do have bi-directional service on both sides of the street. This route would also be proposed for an interline. So it would be interlined with Route 6, and Route 6 would be a different approach to Route 6 than the current Route 6. The proposed Route 6 would be operating kind of as a north-south route, serving the Iowa Street corridor, as well as the LMH Health Campus. It would not go downtown. Instead, it would go to the Bob Billings Hub. So by interlining these two routes, let's say somebody starts at the Bob Billings Hub, and they make their way up to, I think it's called Timber Ridge Road, which is up here on the north end of the Iowa Street corridor. From there, that bus will continue back on Route 3 to downtown. So if a person is on Bob Billings and they make their way up to Timber Ridge, they would, if they stayed on the bus, they'd be able to then head downtown, and vice versa. A person downtown, come up Michigan to Timber Ridge, and then head to the Bob Billings Hub. Okay, so what that means is that both the Bob Billings Hub and downtown have this direct connection to the LMH Health Campus. All right, so that's Route 3 and Route 6. Next, we'll look at Route 4. Patricia, I believe this is the route that you were asking about previously. So Route 4 would, there's a few changes on Route 4. The first is a fairly small change, which is shifting the service from Lyon to North Street over here. So this is Lyon, this is North, and the purpose for that is to provide better access to a fairly large mobile home park located here on North Street to give them more direct access. The route would continue to serve 9th Street, which is different than the scenarios we showed earlier. But then after it gets to the co-op approximately, it would then head up to the 6th Street corridor. And the idea here is North Lawrence has traditionally been a bit of a food desert. You know, it didn't have great access to a lot of grocery stores and so on. So by extending this route along the 6th Street corridor all the way through to the LMH West campus, it allows for direct service to Walmart and several other grocery stores along the 6th Street corridor. So it makes for a one-seat ride for folks from North Lawrence to get to a lot of services, a lot of retail along the 6th Street corridor, but still preserve service along 9th Street. So Patricia, does that answer your question? Okay, Patricia may be muted, but you can.
Yeah, I'm unmuted now.
Okay.
It's really hard for me to follow this. First, it's still really fast. And I had much sleep last night. And this is the map that I had discovered somewhere on the web, and it's really weird because I went to this meeting at the library on Thursday, and 3 people were there talking to me. And even though I asked about that was my main concern, because this is the route that's closest to my home that I use most frequently, or in conjunction with other routes, and sort of like my written comments, which I'm not clear if people have actually received them and looked at them, or if I apologize for not knowing that this route was still there. This is good news for me because I shop at the Merc and I go to the library and I go to other places downtown. But I'm not clear on the interlining as far as it relates to North Lawrence.
Okay, so in this case, this route is interlining is not a big part of this route in particular. Let me show you to make it a little bit clearer. Hopefully, this is the current Route 4 that's on the screen right now, right? So the current Route 4 travels from North Lawrence through downtown and then ends at the Merc, pretty much at the Merc Co-op, right? So the proposed Route 4 keeps this alignment, the part from North Lawrence down to the Merc, it keeps it almost unchanged. There's one small change, and that is shifting service from Lion Street to North Street in North Lawrence, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's one small change. But the more significant change is that the route would continue past the Merc, right? It would continue past here. It would continue along the 6th Street corridor, all the way through past the Walmart, past Lawrence Free State High School. So if you're going to the high school or if you're going to the Walmart, you would be able to have a 1-seat ride from North Lawrence. You stay on the bus past the co-op and you can make your way all the way to the Walmart. And then this route continues through to Rock Chalk Park, and ultimately it'll end at the LMH West campus. Does that help?
It helps me a lot. Thank you. I don't live in North Lawrence, but I understand they have a grocery problem. And I am a member. I'm a member of the Merc, so we don't mind the customers coming.
Great.
But I'm just stunned that I could have gone to this meeting on Thursday and talked to 3 separate people, and that nobody told me that. You know.
Hey, I have a question for Patricia Lance Fay, Vice Chair, PTAC. Do you live in the area kind of behind or to the west of the Merc? Like, so I'm looking at something on this route, but there's an area that the current Route 4 serves where it turns south on Iowa, and there is a sheltered stop that is right in front of the Merc and the whole shopping center.
Right.
The proposed change for this route does not go to that stop.
And where would you have me stop?
So if you, what I'm concerned is, and I'm trying to see if I understand where your concerns are about accessibility, because if you live in that area kind of behind the Merc where the 4 went, that would affect you. But I'm more concerned about going from 9th and Iowa southward to Harvard or wherever they turned. Unless I didn't see this right, it doesn't look like that serves that stop anymore. That would force people to cross Iowa Street and or 9th Street to get to the Merc, and that's problematic. So
yeah, I don't know. I appreciate. First, I want to tell you that if would you like me to respond to that?
Please.
Oh, okay. I don't live over that area. I actually live on Mississippi Street in the 1000 block. I can see out my window the Memorial Stadium. So I'm almost in KU's territory, but not quite. So what I do is I walk down Mississippi Street to catch the 9th Street. And then what I'm used to doing, which will change for me, is downtown, I catch the 10 to come home, which is great because I don't have to walk up the hill and it's much closer to where I live. But I hadn't thought about the bus stop. And that's really good that you're thinking about it because that's a terrible intersection, even
Yeah.
though they're redoing it.
Yeah, try crossing that with groceries.
I have. Live to tell about it, but I'm just trying to find it again on the map. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
But,
so for in your specific case, Patricia, if you're going home, since you would be going home eastbound, you wouldn't have to cross the street to catch the bus because there's a bus stop in the eastbound direction on the same side of the street as the Merck, on the same side of 9th Street as the Merck.
Right,
So
around the corner, right?
Right. However, when you're coming to the store, yes, in that case, you may find yourself needing to cross 9th Street to get to the Merck. So
yeah, that'll get further commentary.
Yeah, that's really kind of bad because it's not very good there with the.
Yeah. Anyone planning this has ever tried to cross 9th Street or Iowa Street in that area, you'll understand why that's problematic.
Yeah, really the only safe way would be to go back up to Iowa Street and cross there at the actual crosswalk. And even then it's, that's a little hairy.
Or going down to Harvard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can't walk that far.
See?
And the locations of the stops could be adjusted as well. So, there could be a stop closer to the intersection of Iowa Street to reduce the walk distance. I believe it is a signalized intersection. So,
Oh yeah, it's definitely signaled.
It's not a matter of signals. It's a matter of safety for pedestrians and bus riders. And that is a terrible intersection to have to cross. Absolutely terrible. As a lifelong bus rider and pedestrian, I avoid that one.
Because what they do is they get in the right-hand lane, and when they get their lights, they just go, and they never look to see if there's a person starting to cross or if there's a person, in other words, they turn right on red is what they do, and they gun it, and and then it is awful. And across the street where that car dealership is, I don't know if they're improving this or not, but it has almost no sidewalk. I mean, it's just sort of like a joke.
Yeah, but it's the pedestrian environment is certainly a challenge in a lot of places, and it's a trade-off because if you have a route that provides more front door service to more places, ultimately it stretches the routes pretty thin and takes up extra running time and the like. So it's a trade-off. I'm not saying that there aren't times when it's worth it, but it's certainly a trade-off. And in this case, we have the ridership information at every stop, and so you'll see that the stops that are currently served by this route closer to Harvard Street are fairly low ridership stops. They're color-coded in, so this particular one has 4 boardings on average a day versus this stop here, which has 6.2 boardings on average a day. So it's a trade-off.
Do you have the information on how many exits for the stop on 9th Street, right at that shopping center? Because that's what I see a lot of traffic at, and I don't know that that's being reflected here. I'm taking this as a regular bus rider who uses this route, and that's a concern. That's a safety concern, a pretty big one actually.
Yeah, we do have the boarding and alighting numbers. It's an average it's sort of a snapshot in time when we were collecting this information. So this route on 9th Street had an average of 1.7 boardings, 6.8 alightings a day. So, and it's opposite on the other side of the street, had similar 6.2 boardings, 0.7 alightings. So most people that were using this were boarding in the westbound direction and alighting in the eastbound direction.
I will just say that if I could, that there is a whole shopping center there. It's not just the Merck, and there are a lot of businesses there, and the bowling alley, and so forth and so on, and some smaller businesses. But I think I'm not sure when you did your counts, of people boarding and so forth, but there's been a lot of time due to the construction on there's been a lot of time that Compton Place where they tore down the old studio and the old and so there's been a lot of times when the bus has been rerouted, and so it may not be all that entirely accurate.
So it was an average for a fairly long period of time. It wasn't a one day snapshot. So I think it likely, it was a 2019 data set. So it was pre-pandemic, which was, a bit more hopefully reflective of how things will look going forward. But those are like the comments that you're making are valid. I think we will, there's a survey that's currently online, and if you would like to put your comments in there to reflect, your position that this isn't a great intersection, that I would encourage you to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will move on then to the, let's do Route 5 next. Okay, let me turn off the ridership. Second. Okay. So Route 5, we talked already about how Route 5 would be interlined with Route 1 at the community shelter. The other main difference about Route 5 is that the current alignment Route 5, which I'll just turn on and off a few times, it operates along the 23rd Street corridor, but then it heads south along Iowa Street to all the retail that is, at the south end of the Iowa Street corridor, the Walmart, the Target, and so on. The proposed alignment of this route would instead, from 23rd Street, take it into the Bob Billings hub. So from 23rd Street, the route would dip down to 24th Street to pick up, there's a high concentration of multifamily housing along 24th Street. It would cross Iowa Street. People could transfer if they wanted to at Iowa Street to go south, but this route is proposed to go to the Bob Billings hub. So what this does is allows access from the Bob Billings hub to not only all the multifamily housing along the 23rd Street and south, but also to key regional destinations like the East Hills Business Park, like the community shelter and the jail. And so this is the 23rd, this is the proposed alignment for Route 5. Okay, any questions on that? All right, so Route 6 we talked about. Route 6 would be interlined with Route 3 and provides north-south travel along the Iowa Street corridor with access to the LMH hospital, as well as the Hallmark facility. Okay, Route 7. Route 7 is picking up the service that I mentioned previously would be shifted from the Route 1. So Route 1 currently operates along the Haskell Avenue corridor, where there is a lot of multifamily housing. That when Route 1 shifts to Massachusetts, Route 7 would pick up that coverage and make direct connections for essentially the route to be restructured to create a one-seat ride from all the multifamily housing along Haskell Avenue, both to downtown and to the Iowa Street retail hub. So, there's low-income housing, there's other multifamily housing along Haskell Avenue. Once they get on the bus, they would have a one-seat ride, a direct ride to Lawrence High School, to Walmart, to downtown, and then obviously connection opportunities to other routes along the way. But that's the proposed Route 7. This route would operate 30 minutes during peak periods, 60 minutes during the off-peak from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's Route 7. Route 7 also has an interline component. Route 7 would be interlined with Route 9. And the reason for that Route 9 is going to be serving the Holcomb Park area, which is in through here. We heard a lot of comments during the previous scenarios that there was a desire to provide a one-seat connection from the Holcomb Park neighborhood through to Lawrence High School here. And so through this inner line, that will be possible. So essentially people who get on the Route 9 along Lawrence Avenue, once they pass the Walmart, if they stay on the bus, they will then head out on Route 7 and have a direct one-seat ride to Lawrence High School. Okay. The main change on Route 9, other than the interline, is that the current Route 9 continues further north. I'll turn it on here. So it continues all the way up to Free State High School. And the proposed Route 9 would truncate at Clinton and Wakarusa. So the route would come out Clinton Parkway. There's, again, a lot of multifamily housing in this corridor. So it would serve the multifamily housing, serve the destination south of Clinton Parkway, but then it would not travel further north on Wakarusa than Clinton Parkway. Okay. So that's Route 7 and Route 9. The next...
I'll figure it out. No worries. That's good.
Okay. Yeah, if there's any questions, please don't hesitate to stop me. Okay, so next we'll talk about Route 10. So let me turn on the current Route 10 for reference. So the current Route 10 serves downtown, as well as the Bob Billings corridor. The proposed Route 10 would terminate at the Bob Billings hub with connection opportunities on other routes heading to downtown Lawrence. So this restructured Route 10 is designed to be truncated at the Bob Billings hub, and it would, on the other end, it would extend along Wakarusa Drive to the LMH West campus and Rock Chalk Park through an area that has, over the last several years, seen a lot of multifamily housing pop up. So this provides this direct service to all this multifamily housing. I'll show it here in a second. Yeah, as you can see, there's several complexes here, fairly large complexes. So from there, they'd have a one-seat ride to the Bob Billings hub, and from the Bob Billings hub, there would be connection opportunities to routes into KU, as well as connections to downtown. There's a route we'll talk about later called the Route 100, which would provide fast and frequent service from the Bob Billings hub through KU and into downtown. So it would require a transfer, but very, very short wait time. And very direct, fast and frequent service to downtown from the Bob Billings hub. So that's Route 10. Okay, next we'll talk about Route 11. Okay, so again, just quickly for reference, Route 11 is another route that currently does serve downtown, but would be proposed to instead serve the Bob Billings hub. So the restructured route would serve the Bob Billings hub and provide some circulation through the KU campus. One important change, if anybody from KU is on, is that this route currently serves the Reserve, which is a pretty large apartment complex popular with students. Route 11 would not serve the Reserve, which is currently it forces the route to go a bit out of direction to serve this complex. The Reserve would still be served, but by a different route, Route 38, which we'll talk about later. But Route 11 would serve all the retail establishments, the Walmart, the Target, but it would not serve the Reserve.
Excuse me, may I just ask about 10? I couldn't seem to get my thing working here, because that's the route that I take from when I'm downtown. That's the route I take home because it saves me walking up a hill two blocks, and it is much closer to my apartment. So that's, I get off at 11th and Indiana at the here Kansas. So that's going to be gone. Is that right?
Yeah, Route 10 would not go operate beyond the Bob Billings hub. So if you are downtown, your best bet is to take the Route 4, both for your inbound and outbound trip.
But what I'm saying is it's difficult for me because I have to walk up a 2-block hill. I understand other people have problems with their transportation and have to go further than 2 blocks. It's just that I'm hoping that, well, can I use the Route 100?
Well, I'll show you the Route 100. It was.
You don't have to jump ahead. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to, you can do the Route 100 when you choose to. I'm just saying that that's something I would like to, I can't follow you on the screen. I'm just using my iPhone, and really it's beyond me to see what you're talking about on here while you're saying it.
So the Route 100 is the closest to the Route 100, which is this black line here. The closest that it would come to where you live is 11th Street. So 11th and Louisiana, or 11th and Indiana. I suppose if you're heading from downtown, it would be 11th and Indiana. So
that's great. Does the Route 100 go there?
Yeah, so Route 100 is proposed for 11th Indiana. So that would mean you could walk along 11th Street to get to, you said you live in Alabama, is that right?
No, I live on Mississippi.
Oh, Mississippi, I'm sorry.
Mississippi and 11th. When I come home from downtown, it's easier for me to get the 10 because it drops me off at 11th and Indiana in front of the Here Kansas building, you know, that apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And I just walk like a half a block and scoot down the alley and round into my place.
Yep.
It's just, so can I use the Route 100?
Yes, the Route 100 would be about a block away from your home.
Right, but I'm just, is it a K route is what I'm trying to say. Will there be other stops that are accessible to non-KU people?
Yeah, the Route 100 is not a KU route. It's a general purpose route. So yes, you could use the Route 100.
Okay, thank you.
So if I see that, Lance Fay, Vice Chair, if I see on your Route 100, it does turn down Indiana from 11th. Is that what I'm seeing there?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So we go in front of the Here apartment. So that would kind of answer her question, and the same stop would be served.
Correct.
Right there. Okay.
So far, so good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, is Route 100, is that a 30-minute route? Is that what that's going to be doing? Or
actually, Route 100 is a 20-minute service for most of the day. The whole idea of the Route 100 is to create this, like I said earlier, this fast and frequent service between these two key hubs, downtown and Bob Billings. So it's sort of the bridge between them, and then also it would travel through Jayhawk Boulevard. So it's, you know, connecting all the absolute key crown jewels of your community in a way.
Yeah. So, as it turns out, those are the areas where we have our highest ridership for the most part.
Yeah, okay. So 20 minutes through peak time and 40 or 60 slower.
40 at the very end of the day for, I think, so this route would also run later than others. So it would run from 6 a.m. to a little bit after 10. At least that's the current plan. So the last, I believe, 3 trips or so would be every 40 minutes, but the rest of the day, it's every 20 minutes.
I had requested that I get a copy of the Route 100. That was when I was at the library, and they didn't have one that they could copy for me. Another thing, it's always interesting to know where the stops are, because a lot of the KU routes or routes that go near KU, you know, the stops aren't where you might wish them to be.
Yeah, so the exact stop locations are yet to be finalized. So for the most part, where possible, the stops would be reused from, you know, if there's a current stop in the ground, that stop would be reused. There could be some movement, you know, and it may not even have to do with the route redesign. I mean, stops occasionally move for various reasons, including requests for for changes from the riding public. But the exact stop locations have not been finalized yet.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Showing Landscape Vice Chair, showing Route 100 at this time was really helpful in seeing how it coordinates with other routes that have changed. So thank you.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that's the theme here is there's a domino effect. Whenever you do a network redesign, one change leads to another and another, and especially if you're implementing things like interlining, sometimes we end up jumping around in the presentation for those reasons. So not a problem. Okay, so that was the 11. We'll talk now about 27. So 27, which is a little bit hard to see. Let me actually make that darker. 1 second.
Go with a good magenta.
Yeah, I'm looking for something there. Hopefully that'll show up a bit better. Okay. So the 27 is intended to be kind of this university connector. So it would connect all these educational institutions, including the Peaslee Center at its southern end, through Haskell Indian Nations University, Lawrence High School, and then the University of Kansas, and then it would end at the Bob Billings Hub. So anybody that is, for example, makes their way to the Bob Billings Hub would have access, one-seat ride access to all of these academic institutions. So this route would be a 30-60 route, meaning 30-minute peak period service, 60-minute off-peak. It would be a year-round route, and it would operate from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. One other important thing about this route is that actually it would be interlined with Route 10, which we talked about earlier. And the benefit of that is that if a person is coming, I talked earlier about all the new apartments up on Wakarusa, kind of near Free State High School and so on. If there's a student that lives in those apartments that attends any of these institutions and they ride Route 10, because it's interlined with Route 27, they could stay on the bus at Bob Billings and they could continue through KU, Lawrence High School, which maybe is less likely, the Haskell and Peaslee Center. So that's the way that interline works.
Landscape Vice Chair, so 27 will also run on Saturdays now too, right? Which I don't think it does now. I'm not sure, but I thought it didn't. So
yes, I believe that's correct. I'll need to just check my notes quickly on that.
If it's interlined with 10, it would almost have to.
Yes. That is.
Yeah, that would really force a big change if it interlined 5 days a week and then not on the other.
No. So yes, it would also run on Saturdays. That's correct.
That's very good. That's very good.
Yeah. Okay. Next route we'll talk about is 29. Okay. Okay, so the 29 is intended to operate between the same kind of residential areas we talked about earlier, south along Clinton Parkway and south of Clinton Parkway, and it's intended to it would end at the Bob Billings Hub. There's a couple of sort of outstanding questions about the final alignment of this route because of construction and sort of planned construction here. Oops, 1 second. Let me zoom in. So yeah, so because of construction along Becker Drive and there's a planned development that will come in here on 21st Street. This alignment is a little bit up in the air. It may end up heading up. It may end up being castled to Bob Billings. Potentially, it could be Iowa to Bob Billings. The long-term recommendation is to come up Becker Drive because there is a new development that's coming in here, and then head to the Bob Billings Hub. But I don't have a final exact alignment for this route, unfortunately, at the moment because of these construction issues. But the main thing about this route is that it would connect these residential areas between 27th and Clinton Parkway, and then along Clinton Parkway through to the Bob Billings hub, where connections could be made to the KU routes and to other routes serving the Bob Billings hub.
Will this still just be a Monday through Friday route?
This route would be a Monday through Friday route. It would operate 30-minute service with 45 minutes service, 45-minute late night service. So a few trips at 45 minutes in the late night, but generally 30-minute service.
And no Saturday.
Let me double check that one. I believe no Saturday on this route.
Currently, there's no Saturday on the 29th.
Yeah. Let me make sure. So let me just, actually there would be Saturday service on the 29, and the reason for that is that the 29 is proposed for interline with the 11. So this is the 11, and the 11. So both of these routes would have Saturday service. The 11, as I mentioned, provides service from the Bob Billings hub down to the Iowa Street retail area, and then it serves multifamily housing along 24th Street. So because of this interline, people on the 29 would be able to make their way to campus without having to transfer.
All right, so Lance Fay, Vice Chair. So the interlining on that one, I have a question. The way the 11 has run for the past few years is that it oftentimes requires a third bus to stay on schedule with its current route. Like it's been a, it doesn't just, the idea of the two buses circulating hasn't worked for the 11. They've had to add a third one periodically during peak periods. And as the route is being redesigned, are they designing it in a way that they think they're just going to be able to run the two buses or however many buses consistently through that? I kind of look at it and I go, I could see a potential for there being a bottleneck there of, peak traffic for the 11 and how that would work with its interlining with the 29. And I'm just curious if that's been considered and if there's anything on the
Yes. Yes, it has been considered, and that is another reason to do interlines, because what interlines allow you to do, oops, that's not what I wanted to, let me see if I can put it back up. Sorry, I just lost my Zoom. Oh, here it is. Okay, yeah, lots of windows. I lost my Zoom window, so I couldn't see you guys. So another reason for interlining is to allow planners to optimize cycle times. So a cycle time is the amount, essentially it's a round trip. A round trip is called a cycle. So cycle times, if you have a 60-minute cycle time, let's say, then with one vehicle at your disposal, you can provide hourly service. With two vehicles, you can provide 30-minute service. With three vehicles, service every 20 minutes, and then with four, every 15 minutes. So sometimes what you end up having is a route that has too much time on its cycle to get to a good round number like 60 or 30. Another route that has not enough. But when you combine them together, you can create a good, clean 60-minute cycle time, or it could be 120-minute cycle time, whatever the case may be. So in this case, there are three vehicles that are assigned to cycle between the Route 11 and the Route 29. So they would do 29, and then go on to the 11, back to 29. Three vehicles would do that same pattern concurrently. With those three vehicles in service, we would be able to provide 30-minute service on both routes, and then have sufficient layover time or recovery time to ensure the on-time performance of the route. I can tell you exactly the recovery time. So for the 11 and 29 together, we have a cycle time of 1 hour and 30 minutes. Of that cycle, an hour and 24 minutes is devoted to, I'm sorry, let's see, 13 minutes of that hour and 30 minutes, 13 minutes is recovery time. So there's at the end of each cycle, there's 13 minutes left over for the bus. You know, sometimes it won't be 13 minutes. If a bus is running late, there may only be 3 of those 13 minutes left. But best case scenario is you have 13 minutes left to try to get back on schedule. Does that help? Okay.
Yes, that's sufficient. Thank you.
Okay. So that's the 29. Okay, now we'll talk about Route 30. So this is a fairly important change. I'm going to bring up the Route 100 while we talk about the Route 30 because they're connected. They're not interlined, but the discussion of them is connected. So the current Route 30 does 2 important things off campus. It serves the Meadowbrook apartments area, and then it also serves the apartments along Apple Lane. The proposed Route 30 would serve the Meadowbrook area, but not Apple Lane. And instead, the Apple Lane would be kind of the turnaround point for the Route 100. So this route, Route 30, would operate, like I said, from Meadowbrook through to the Union, the Kansas Union. It would operate every 30 minutes during most of the day, and then 60 minutes in the evening from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. This route would also be interlined with Route 36, which we'll talk about in a minute, but just so you can kind of see what it looks like. It looks like this. The 36 is serving the 9th Street corridor and the 6th Street corridor as well. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I just want to come back to Route 30. So the main change on the Route 30 is that it would truncate at the Meadowbrook apartments rather than Apple Lane. So any questions on the Route 30? Okay. So if not, then we'll talk about the 36. And there's 2 changes on the 36 that are kind of important. Probably the most important is this inner line, because the reason to interline the 30 and the 36 is in order to create a cycle time that it allows for flexibility. So it's, I believe, a 60-minute cycle time between the 2 routes. And that means that whatever resources KU ends up having, this route could be very easily adjusted to be 20-minute service, 30-minute service, hourly service, depending on how many vehicles KU is ultimately able to support with their funding. So that's number 1. Number 2, there's a small change on kind of the north end of the route that I'll just zoom in here. All right. So from the 6th Street corridor, the current end of the line on Route 36 takes the route through these apartments through here. I always forget the name of this street, but it'll pop up here in just a second. No, this is Gateway, right? Gateway Court. Yeah, so instead of terminating the route at Gateway Court, which gets it close to a couple of fairly large apartment complexes, instead the route would head up to Trail Road, because that then provides access to yet another fairly large apartment complex called the Frontier. These apartments would still be on the route. People would just need to come out to 6th Street, but it does open up access to yet another large multifamily housing complex, and that's the proposed end of the line for the 36. Other than that, the 36 is fairly similar, really similar actually to the alignment of the existing Route 36, but it is proposed to be interlined with the Route 30. Any questions on that? Okay. So
I'll just advise we're down to 10 minutes left in the
Okay.
meeting, so we should try and wrap it up so
Okay.
we can discuss staff issues.
Okay, very good. We'll talk then about 34, which is this route here, which is again fairly similar to the current Route 34, but it, like the 30 and 36, is proposed for an interline. So it's proposed to be interlined with Route 38. And again, that's to create a 60-minute cycle time. The Route 38 is changed somewhat because the current Route 38 ends around 30, let me see, 25th Street. Yeah, it ends at 25th Street, but the proposed Route 38 would head further south all the way to the reserve. As you may remember, the reserve is currently served by Route 11. So this proposal is taking the reserve off of the 11 and putting it onto the 38. The reserve is very popular with students, so this would get them a KU focused route that goes directly into campus from the reserve.
Also good.
Okay, so that's the 34 and the 38. Next we have we talked about the 36. We have the 42. Okay. So the 42, let me maybe bring up this. Yeah. So the 42 is a route that kind of combines the current 41 and 42 alignment into a single route. So that's the current 41, that's the current 42. They're a little bit difficult to see, but basically you would have service from what's currently the park and ride lots up through the Daisy Hill area, Irving Hill area, through the rec center, and then the route would ultimately do this end of the line loop along Sunnyside Avenue up to Jayhawk Boulevard, serve the engineering buildings, and then head back to the rec center. So this would be a bi-directional route for the most part, except for this end of the line loop. So if you are on campus, if you're at Jayhawk Boulevard and you're trying to get to the rec center, you'd be able to get to the rec center or from the rec center back to Jayhawk Boulevard. So you have bi-directional service on this route. So that's the 42. The 43 route is unchanged. So it provides this connection from the Irving Hill, from all the dorms in that area, through to the Union area, as well as up to GSP here. So that's unchanged. Route 100 we already talked about.
Just real quick on 42 and 43, are the frequency of those routes pretty similar as far as to what they are now? Like, are they fairly similar still? I guess that's the only question.
So the 42.
I was just going to weigh in on that. This is Margareta DeFries from KU. This is actually also something that will be impacted by our budget constraints and discussed in the Transit Commission later this week.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. They're planned for fairly frequent service, but again, KU has this ongoing discussion, so we'll see.
Yeah, we're looking at going from 7 to 10 minutes on 43, and Route 42 staying around 10 to 12.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, 44 is the late night service at KU. No changes to that, but the one thing that I will mention that we haven't talked about yet is the plan for Sunday service. So there is a plan for Sunday microtransit service covering essentially the entire, the Lawrence Transit covered service area. And I think we talked on a previous meeting about microtransit. I know we only have like a minute or two left, but microtransit is a demand response service. It's an app-based demand response service, meaning that people would be able to reserve the vehicle like they do with Uber and Lyft. It would be a van, and it would be available on Sundays for people to reserve through an app on their phone. They could also call in. There would be a call-in option as well, but that is the kind of introduction to Sunday service in the Lawrence Transit Service area.
So Lance Fay, Vice Chair, PTAC. So that's going to be kind of similar in its organization to what is our Nightline service now, and that you call it in ahead of time and you get pretty much a door-to-door service. Is what they're doing.
It's similar, except it's more real time. So instead of having to book far in advance, you could use an app to book in real time. And there would be several vehicles that would be available for the service that would respond likely within 30 minutes or less to a trip request. So, all right, I'll stop there. I know I've used up all my time.
Can you, as you stop, can you really quickly just throw all the routes up on the screen so people can see them? Just have them there for 30 seconds. I think it's good for everyone to see just what they all look like together, and just.
Sure.
Yeah, it gives us a nice taste of what the coverage of the area is. Like, you can definitely see we don't touch anywhere west of Wakarusa except for Rock Chalk Park area.
Correct. And it's it might be a bit helpful. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't have anything on top of that. Just that was the one big area that I saw we didn't have anything, and that's okay.
Yeah. And the question about service on Wakarusa was dictated in large part by the fact that there is service now on Wakarusa that has very, very low ridership. So if something had to be sacrificed, that was an area that kind of got the short end of the stick, but there just aren't a lot of riders out there.
Yep. I'm one of six people that ever rides out there.
Okay.
And whenever I start using, I will probably be one of the 7 then.
Yep. But the main point is that the Bob Billings hub becomes actually a hub. Like it becomes a major focal point of the service. It's right here. Everything is sort of overlapped. It's maybe a little bit difficult to see, but there are quite a few routes serving the Bob Billings hub. There are other secondary hubs that emerge, like LMH Health has a couple routes that would be available to people. The East Hills Business Park would now have 2 routes serving it. The South Iowa Street area would have several routes that people could transfer between. So there's the primary Bob Billings hub and of course downtown remains a hub, but those 2 remain the primary ones, but there are kind of these secondary ones that emerge as well.
It's August Rudiso, PTAC member. I'm just really curious if we have to have that whole loop around Haskell University, because all the dormitories are right there off Indian Avenue and Barker. And it just seems like, and there's a speed hump every 100 feet. It just seems like it's a big loop around the university that maybe it will be cut out eventually anyway.
That was a sort of a compromise, because originally the Route 27 would not have gone as far south. It would have stayed on Indian Avenue. Indian Avenue, so 23rd to Indian Avenue and back. But we did hear feedback during the previous round of stakeholder outreach, desire to go a bit deeper into campus.
Really?
So,
okay.
Yep. So we'll see. Maybe there won't be much ridership through there, and maybe it'll change. But
now that you zoomed in, I forgot how far south it goes on West Perimeter Road. I know like Road Cloud Hall is there and some other dormitories. So thank you for that.
Okay. If there are no other questions, then thank you all very much. And I just encourage everyone to go on the Lawrence Transit website and find the survey to provide your feedback. Okay.
Thank you, Boris. Given that it's 5:29, I'm not sure that we have a whole lot of time to go through the rest of our agenda, but what remains is PTAC members, if you have anything that you want to discuss in a future agenda or a future work session that we have, please contact Lance, Adam, and myself. We'll happily add this to future agenda item. I don't think there's any other items, and even if there are, I'm going to say we should not discuss them until next month because we're out of time. Felice, is there anything on transit staff items that you'd like to add quickly?
Very briefly, we did hear back on the AIC awards. We were awarded just under $2.7 million on most of the proposals that we submitted. So we can end on a good note.
Yes, I was really happy and glad that we got that. So among other things, I'll let you know that's about 1.2 million in funds for the transfer facility. I can't remember exactly what it was earmarked for. There's accessibility and other technology improvements. There's some work to, or some funding to help us install our chargers for the new buses. There's some money for the microtransit pilot, and then I can't remember what the last bundle is, but we got basically everything we were looking for, which is great, even if it's a little late. And then the other thing I've heard is we're still waiting for getting the electric buses, the first batch of 5 from Gillig. So, you know, could happen this month, might happen next month. We'll keep you updated. Unless someone else has something they want to add in the very next 10 seconds before I adjourn the meeting, we will be meeting again on May 9th. So please sign on for that. Last call. Anyone have anything that they want to bring up right now before we adjourn? Okay. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
I know we're getting close on one, I think, to cover for from Bart. We had some people in mind, and unfortunately, I don't have enough time right now. So we're re-looking in another direction. But yeah, if anyone can think of anyone, definitely send it over to Mayor Shipley. So now we're moving on to C, which is public comment. And Roger, has there anyone who has signed up for public comment so far?
Well, I see that JT is on, and I don't know if JT, if you can unmute yourself, or you want any public comment, or are you just here to listen tonight? No comment, okay. Thank you.
All right. That means we're moving on to item D, which is our agenda for this month's meeting.
Oh, Jackie, one moment. I guess that we don't have it live on YouTube yet. That's what he was saying on this. So he probably is waiting to view it. I guess he may be on his phone or something. So we may